The Unforgiven 2 was released on Reload in 1997 and then was also released as a single in early 1998. Although the single for 2 did not break the top 40 of the Hot 100 like 1 did, it still made it to a very, very respectable number 59. It also actually charted higher on the US mainstream rock charts, reaching number 2. 2 starts off with a direct reference to 1. The horn and snare roll intro is taken directly from the intro to 1, and to my ears, I can't really hear any discernible differences. This immediately puts the first song in mind. Even if you did not know the name of the song while listening to the CD, you instantly know that the song is referencing the Unforgiven 1. However, in contrast to 1, the band goes straight into the whole band playing together. There is no lone guitar intro here. The transition from horn to intro section is a little bit jarring and not nearly as smooth as 1. This is due to the fact that rather than being in the key of A minor like the first song, this song is in the key of A flat minor. First off, it gives the song a darker feel to it, but it also helps differentiate it from the Unforgiven 1. This is accomplished by the band tuning a half step down to E flat standard guitar tuning. If you remember from earlier, the horn was playing E and A note layered together so that when the band is playing in the key of A flat, it does not flow as well or as easily as in 1. And perhaps this was intentional. I mean, easily they could have lowered the horns 1 semitone and would have been in the same key, but in a way, the jarring transition works to differentiate the song completely from 1. You know, like saying this is not the same song. Either way, the song starts with the band playing a short little riff passage with power chords and Kirk playing octaves over top of it. It has a slightly dirty, grungy sound to it, which fits the song in neatly to the rest of Load and Reload, and I just have to say that the drums don't sound nearly as good as they did on 1. A victim of the late 90s trend in metal to have the driest drum sounds possible. Layered underneath the distorted electric guitars, you can hear a shimmering acoustic strumming open cowboy chords layered underneath. The intro section plays for 4 bars, and similar to 1, we will see this intro motif used again and again throughout the song. A nice little callback to 1 without it being too obvious. Then with the cymbal choke, the band stops and we get a lone clean guitar. This guitar has a ton of country twang to it, and honestly, I love it. This dark outlaw country sound fits in perfectly with the rest of the songs from Load and Reload, which also feature this outlaw country influence all over them. This riff is unusual for Metallica and metal bands in general, as James plays it with a Telecaster equipped with a B-bender string attachment thing, I guess you would call it. This essentially allows the guitar player to bend the B string by itself by pushing the guitar into the body of the player. It creates a very cool effect, one which is very, very country. You can see him playing it in the music videos here as well as in a live show. The device allows the user to bend the B string independently and always to the same note, which is a full tone higher in pitch. It almost gives the sound of the Telecaster a pedal steel flavor, and James uses this to great effect here, especially as here before the verse starts, it is just the lone guitar playing, so it really gets its own chance to shine. The lone guitar gets 4 bars to itself, and halfway through this guitar intro, we get a little lead melody from Kirk. It sounds like there's an octave doubler, pedal effect maybe on this melody here. The chord progression that the band plays here is the same progression as the chorus of the Unforgiven 1, which, if you remember from earlier, is a minor 1, major 3, major 7, minor 5 chord progression. It is played half a step down, though, due to the band playing an E-flat tuning. So rather than A minor, C major, G major, E minor, as it was in the first song, it is just a half step down, so we have this progression of A-flat minor, B major, G-flat major, and E-flat minor. Although different to the Unforgiven 1, the band does not introduce the harmonic minor feel to it at all. It just gives it that small amount of continuity between the 2 tracks.
Hey, Editing Varvis here. Just really quick, you heard how the chord progressions matched the same in the intro. In the intro, I just took the 2 songs and lowered the Unforgiven 1's melodies and chords to be in A flat minor. So you heard how they're the same in the intro. So if you want to hear that, just go listen to the intro little medley again there.
It is also worthy of note that this chord progression is also played during the softer or light verses, while the heavy chorus deviates from this progression. A nice little touch here, as the key being different enough differentiates it enough that you probably didn't even notice it was the same progression until now. Which, speaking of, the band decided to drop the light chorus heavy verse gimmick for the Unforgiven 2. A decision which I respect, as the songs would probably be far too similar if they did the same thing over again. Although they do bring this idea back for 3, but we will get to that in short order. Lay beside me. James sings, "Lay beside me and tell me what they've done, and speak the words I want to hear to make my demons run. The door is locked now, but it's open if you're true. If you can understand the me, then I can understand the you." His vocal style is much different from the Black Album. He is singing in a lower register first of all, and there's much less grit in his voice. James's voice was damaged during the recording of the Black Album, specifically the cover of So What. This led him to finally get a vocal coach and a rehab program. Both of these things will change a person's voice, and while his singing voice is a lot more polished than previous efforts, I find that it misses a lot of the personality and untrained aggression from the Black Album. On this song, his voice is a lot more vibrato, and he slides around between notes a little bit more. You can definitely tell that James was influenced vocal-wise by a lot of the grunge singers of this era in music. Although he never goes full Jarl, but he does use a more nasally approach as compared to the throaty Black Album. We'll get to the lyrics at the end here, but I like the little callback to one. Quote, "If you can understand the me, then I can understand the you." End quote. This here is pretty much an explicit reference to the, quote, "You label me, I'll label you," end quote line, which is a nice little touch. After this first verse stanza, the band then goes back to the opening intro motif. Although this time, James is simply playing a clean guitar pattern, while Kirk and the rest of the band plays the same thing as before. Similar to the Unforgiven 1, the band uses the intro motif often and throughout the song, a pattern which also continues into the Unforgiven 3. The second part of verse 1 here adds a very interesting effect-laden picking pattern in the right speaker. Under wicked sky, through black of day. It's an interesting pattern, mostly just picking chord arpeggios, and it's pretty hard to hear, but you can hear it in the isolated tracks quite well. Kirk then plays the same lead melody he played during the lone guitar part before the first verse. As the door cracks open, but there's no... A nice little touch and use of repetition here. James sings, "Lay beside me, under wicked skies. Through black of day, dark of night, we share this paralyzed. The door cracks open, but there's no sun shining through. Black heart scarring darker still, but there's no sun shining through. No, there's no sun shining through. No, there's no sun shining." Here in these lyrics is a nice little double entendre. On the word paralyzed, it sounds as if James is saying pair of lies. Dark of night, we share this paralyzed. And honestly, until I went and looked up the lyrics for these songs in this video, this is indeed what I thought he was saying. I am unsure if this was intentional wordplay or simply just a happy coincidence. But, you know, let's just believe it was on purpose, shall we? A nice little harmony on the line, quote, "Black heart scarring darker still," end quote, brings us into the pre-chorus. Shining through, no, there's no sun shining through. As the band moves into the pre-chorus, we get several elements from the pre-chorus in the Unforgiven 1 returning. It is 2 bars of 4 beats with 1 bar of 2 beats, which is essentially the same structure from 1. Lars also uses the toms to transition and differentiate the drum beats from the verse and chorus. Nice little touches again to throw it back to the earlier song. You can also hear some strings being played in the background, but they are extremely subtle and barely audible. Just a nice little touch though. As the chorus for 2 comes in, we're immediately presented with another throwback to 1, with the lines, quote, "What I felt, what I've known, end quote. These iconic opening chorus lines are sung with much aggression and are paired with the heavy instrumentation, which right away sets it apart from one. Then, as the lyrics and melody deviate from the original, it subverts your expectations and makes you listen with an interested ear. Again, they did a very nice job borrowing elements from one, but changing it just enough to keep it familiar and yet fresh. The way a good sequel should operate in theory. Again, as in one, a tambourine is used as extra percussion here in the chorus, as James sings, "What I've felt, what I've known, turn the pages, turn the stone. Behind the door, should I open it for you? Yeah, what I've felt, what I've known. Sick and tired, I stand alone. Could you be there, 'cause I'm the one who waits for you? Or are you unforgiven too?" I really like the chorus in the song. It is very, very strong, the riff underneath is cool, and I especially like the little guitar fill they use after the line, "Should I open it for you?" It sort of reminds me of the fill used during the solo of one. They add some nice harmonies under the main vocal line during the lines, quote, "behind the door," end quote, and then later on, quote, "could you be there?" Although they do not continue these harmonies till the end lines of the chorus. In contrast to one, the harmonies end here and the end line is not harmonized, which on the Unforgiven 1 was the only harmonized line of the chorus. Nice little touch. As well as another little differentiation, the lyrics on the Unforgiven 2 start on the downbeat rather than on the Unforgiven where they start on the upbeat. I really like the vocal delivery of the line, quote, "sick and tired, I stand alone," end quote. James delivers it with some serious bitterness in his voice and kind of brings back some memories of the Black Album. The chorus ends with another homage to one, although this one, is very obvious. He asked the question, or are you unforgiven too? Referencing the damning line of, "so I dubbed thee unforgiven." Although this one is another double entendre. Obviously the lyrics are not meant to be taken this way. You could see it as the Unforgiven 2, as in the number 2, and I think this choice in line was a little tongue-in-cheek here. But it's a good and catchy ending line, made all the better with this double meaning. I wonder if this one line was what the entire song was written about. A good hook which references the original but gives us more to go with. He thought to himself, "Are you unforgiven too? Unforgiven too?" I don't know, who knows. The band then goes back to that opening intro motif once again before moving into the second verse. Come lay beside me. The second verse here omits the clean country picked riff from earlier, instead replacing it with two effects-drenched guitars playing different melodies. The guitar in the right speaker is playing this pattern, which sounds a lot like the opening guitar pattern to Dream On by Aerosmith. These sort of pulsating chord dyads with a note in between to complete the chord. It's very cool. And the guitar in the left speaker is playing this nice little melody, which sounds like it's being both volume swelled and wah pedaled. Both guitars together create a very cool effect that is pretty striking, and it gives verse 2 really its own sound and personality. She loves me still, but she'll never love again. It also leaves a lot of space for the vocals and lowers the energy somewhat. The lyrics in the second verse are, "Come lay beside me, this won't hurt, I swear. She loves me not, she loves me still, but she'll never love again. She lay beside me, but she'll be there when I'm gone. Black heart scarring darker still. Yes, she'll be there when I'm gone. Yes, she'll be there when I'm gone. Dead sure she'll be there." The second verse gives the vocals many more harmonies, which makes use of the space opened up sonically by the guitars playing these very sporadic and spacey ambient patterns. Lay beside me, but she'll be there. This line of "Black heart scarring darker still" is repeated again, but the following lines change, and we will get to this later, but it is an interesting songwriting tactic to use the same line, but follow it with something else. Gives us, the listeners, another little earworm to pay attention to, something familiar yet different once again. When I'm gone, yes, she'll be there when I'm gone. The strings in this section are a little bit louder than on the first pre-chorus, and they help to build tension into the second chorus. The second chorus comes and goes much the same as the first. Really, the only way to tell these apart is a few different drum parts and the James does in the middle. Otherwise, this chorus is basically played nearly identical to the first chorus. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course, right? It's a good chorus. Why mess with success? As the second chorus ends, we move right into guitar solo, which is very different from one. A nice little touch though, as it keeps the momentum from the chorus going. You know, instead of the momentum from the chorus, and then you have the intro motif, and then you go back to the heavier parts. Instead, it's just the one, steady energy level. A nice solo from Kirk Hammett. The band underneath Kirk plays once again the opening motif / riff, whatever you want to call it. As the solo moves into its second section, the band builds up in intensity. Lars plays a double time pattern on the ride, complete with as many tom fills, as James and Jason play the chorus riff underneath. It is cool as this riff sort of echoes the riff that is played under the solo in 1, complete with another cool guitar fill. This does a good job of picking up the pace and intensity, while Kirk also plays a little bit more intricate and aggressive runs in this part of the solo. As the solo ends, we essentially get a full repeat of the opening motif / riff, complete with the same octave lead pattern, just with different drum patterns. It even ends on the same cymbal choke to the lone guitar. And if there's anything I've learned from studying these songs so far, is that tasteful and purposeful use of repetition can really make a song feel cohesive and flowing. Metallica does this very well on his track, utilizing this intro motif frequently, but every time it is just a little bit different, or it's put in a different place in the song. Yeah, good stuff. For example, they use this motif here as an intro to connect verse 1 with the second stanza under a guitar solo, and then finally as a bridge. The cymbal choke into the lone B-bender guitar riff is a cool dynamic shift from the energy of the solo. It's very sudden. It's good. As the riff plays for the second bar, James comes in with the vocals. Lay beside me, tell me what I've done. The door is closed, so are your eyes. But now I see the sun. Now I see the sun. Yes, now I see it. Tell me what I've done. The door is closed, so I... The short little phrase that James sings echoes many things from earlier in the song, while also echoing the Unforgiven 1 by playing the same chord progression. So the short little bridge, I guess we can call it, is referring back to both songs. It's a cool touch. Here James sings the lines, quote, "Tell me what I've done," end quote, versus, quote, "Tell me what they've done," end quote. An interesting change in lyrical themes, which we will speak on later. It's very cool. He also references the door and sun metaphors. In verse 1, the door was locked. Verse 2, it was cracked open. And here on the bridge, it is closed again. Yet, despite the door being closed, the sun is now visible. Interesting. Just some really fantastic songwriting here. Now I see it. As James sings the last few lines of the small bridge section, he holds the note and bends it upwards, which is different from how the transition from verse to chorus go in both the first and second verses. He bends from D flat to E flat while the band holds this A flat minor chord. This creates a nice increase in energy and serves to bring us to the final chorus as well. Very good singing by James here. He doesn't get a lot of credit for his singing, and even I kind of ragged on a little bit earlier in this song, but yeah, he's a great singer. This is also accompanied by a small, what sounds to be a synth swell here. All this just adds up to bring up the energy to the final chorus. As the third chorus plays out very similarly to the first two, we get a beat switch up on the second half by Lars. He plays this sort of syncopated double time on the snare and crashes before giving us a nice fill into the extended chorus outro or coda. Like I've mentioned in my Genius of Lars Ulrich video, he always knows when to add just a little extra to serve the song well, and this third chorus here is a prime example of that. As the band moves into the extended last chorus, or I suppose you could look at as the coda, we get yet many more throwbacks to 1. In the right speaker, we get the iconic twangy riff ringing out of the background. Of course, though, this time it is played a step down, but the production on the guitar sounds to be pretty much the same as in 1. This is a nice touch, and to be honest with you guys, it does not feel out of place at all, although I have heard some other people calling it a little bit ham-fisted. You be the judge. The rhythm that the guitar is playing is slightly different and changed to match the rhythm being played by the other instruments. As James sings out the first half of the last chorus, in the left speaker, we hear, quote, "So I dub thee Unforgiven." Almost like it is a memory from his past. A nice little touch to tie it all together. James sings a slight variation in the last half of the chorus here. "Oh, what I felt, oh, what I've known. I'll take this key and I'll bury it in you, because you're unforgiven too." He gives it some extra sauce here, singing some variations on the melodies. Great stuff. We also get in the right speaker another throwback or another melody we could think of with the line, "You label me, I'll label you" lines, which are taken directly from the Unforgiven 1 again. And it all works together really, really well in my opinion. Great songwriting, and I love how the coda brings back all these subtle small touches that the band played in the Unforgiven 1 and brings them all back and brings them together in this cohesive unit. And as the coda plays out, we get yet another throwback, but mixed with a little bit newer stuff. "Never free, never me, 'cause you're unforgiven too." Which I think is just another great way to mix the old and new. As James sings his last lines on these O's, he lands on the note of E flat, and then we get what sounds like a slide guitar, which slides up to C, which is the major third interval of E flat, essentially literally ending the song on a happy note, which is very relevant to the story the song is trying to tell. All in all, The Unforgiven 2 is easily the strongest track off Reload in my opinion, blending Metallica's sound with more grunge and country influences very well. In addition to that, the band manages to write something fresh while also retaining lots of elements from the Unforgiven 1. It feels like a solid sequel. They feel related but not the same, familiar yet new, and most importantly, The Unforgiven 2 sounds like it's part of a cohesive unit with The Unforgiven 1. Great stuff. So, now on to the lyrics. It is pretty clear to me that the character in question here is the same character or person from 1. Not only does the title of the song relate this to us right away, as it is literally the sequel to the story of the man who cannot forgive society, culture, or authority figures, but the music and lyrics also make this clear that it is part of the same story. So remember a while back when I told you that The Unforgiven 2 is I Cannot Forgive You? Well, who is this you? Is it the same character from The Unforgiven 1? Then who is this you that he cannot forgive? Well, to me, the song tells the story of the man finding someone who is also forgiven, someone who has also shared similar experiences with culture and society, damaging them and painting them, disgracing them. Yet, despite the fact that they are unforgiven, this person is also a part of society, as we all are. So despite the shared experience and trauma, he struggles to forgive this person as he has shut himself off from society, shut himself off from everyone else, which includes this person that he finds common ground with. Let me explain further. This struggle is mentioned many times with the door and key metaphors that are used throughout the song. The door here we can look at as his defensive reaction from the trauma that he has suffered. Doors are gateways to other spaces, and behind this closed door, he hides himself away from others. It is a self-preservation response from the trauma he experienced, and his vow to never let his own will being taken away. We can look at this metaphor as the struggle to open yourself and your heart to others after being hurt. The lyrics detail how the two characters here relate with each other and find common comfort in the shared experience that they have had. Quote, "Lay beside me, tell me what they've done. Speak the words I want to hear to make my demons run." End quote. The line "speak the words I want to hear to make my demons run" is very, very powerful. A fantastic poetic line. The line here indicates that not only does the narrator want to find comfort in someone else, but he wants to comfort them in turn, finding comfort within each other, so to speak. However, he uses the words, quote, "I want to hear," end quote, which indicates to me that he is still closed off. He believes that these words may not be true, but he wants to hear them anyways, showing his desperation. He wants to hear these words spoken to him, even if they are untrue. Yet, it is this mistrust to everyone that makes the door to himself remain closed. Quote, "The door is locked now, but it's open if you're true. If you can understand the me, then I can understand the you." End quote. Here is the first mention of the door metaphor, essentially saying here, I am closed off to everyone due to my mistreatment from society, yet if you are truly who you say you are, then my heart can maybe perhaps be opened. Like I said earlier, the understand the me line is a throwback to the Unforgiven 1, where instead of labeling people, he is trying to understand and relate to them. Very much the opposite of the accusatory nature of the people from the Unforgiven 1. Quote, "Lay beside me under wicked skies. Through black of day, dark of night, we share this paralyzed." End quote. Here they reuse the lay beside me line. Laying beside someone is usually a very intimate body position, saved only for lovers and family members only. You know, for the most part, of course there are exceptions. The two of them lay together, quote, "under wicked skies and dark nights," end quote, which essentially is the metaphor for society, culture, or authority. These dark skies, black nights, and dark days represent the overbearing nature of the societal forces looking down on the unforgiven, darkening their future, darkening their horizons, blocking out the sun. Great metaphor here, and when you combine that with perhaps the unintentional double entendre that I mentioned earlier on paralyzed, where they are both paralyzed by the pressure society places upon them, but perhaps they also relate to each other with their, quote, pair of lies, end quote, which again could be looked at as the mistrust that the narrator has still. Intriguing lyrics here, and let me know what you guys think. Is this double entendre intended, or am I just crazy? Am I hearing things? Do you hear this too? Leave it down below. Quote, "The door cracks open, but there's no sun shining through. Black heart scarring darker still, but there's no sun shining through." End quote. Here we see the first use of the sun metaphor. He intends to let this person in, to open the door to his heart, yet nothing comes through. The sun here would be a metaphor for love or perhaps acceptance, his black heart still being scarred by everything around them, but he cannot let the sun shine through. The wicked skies and dark nights block this from happening still. Quote, "What I've felt, what I've known, turn the pages, turn the stone. Behind the door, should I open it for you?" End quote. And here now in the chorus lyrics, we get that throwback directly to the Unforgiven 1 with the same first lines. The turning of pages and turning of stones is a way to represent a change. And then he asks the question, quote, "Behind the door, should I open it for you?" You know, should he open the door? Can he even open the door? Is it within his power and strength to even do so? Is the person worthy enough? Is he worthy enough of acceptance and love? This is why he's paralyzed. He's paralyzed by the wicked skies and dark nights. He cannot see the sun. Quote, "Yeah, what I've felt, what I've known. Sick and tired, I stand alone. Could you be there? 'Cause I'm the one who waits for you? Or are you unforgiven too?" End quote. Here the narrator confesses to us that he is sick and tired of being alone. The unrelenting pressure to conform has worn him thin over the years. Perhaps he remembers the old man from the Unforgiven 1, the one he saw die with many regrets, and he does not want to be like him. He is waiting for someone. He is waiting for a true person to open the door to his heart. He asks, "Are you unforgiven too?" Again, I mentioned the double entendre here. He asks if they are unforgiven, but it is also the title of the song, The Unforgiven 2. And by posing this question, "Are you unforgiven too?" he's asking, are you like me? Can you let other people in too? Are you true? Are you unforgiven too? Essentially, there's a lot of meanings packed into that one small line, which is a very common trend here in these Unforgiven songs I've started to notice. The second verse sees the narrator now inviting the other person to be with him. Quote, "Come lay beside me, this won't hurt, I swear. She loves me not, she loves me still, but she'll never love again. She lay beside me, but she'll be there when I'm gone. Black heart scarring darker still, yes, she'll be there when I'm gone." End quote. Yet, despite his invitation and the narrator's want of someone to share his life with, it seems that he's not convinced that he won't hurt the other person. Quote, "This won't hurt, I swear," and quote, "she'll never love again." These lines almost seem to be sarcastic in nature. Perhaps he's trying to convince himself that she doesn't love him, to spare them both the potential for hurt that he has in his blackened, scarred heart. He speaks to this by saying, quote, "She lay beside me, but she'll be there when I'm gone," end quote, as if he is expecting himself to hurt her, or perhaps the other way around. These lines are essentially saying that not only does the narrator not trust society and everyone around him, but he does not trust himself either. He does not trust himself to not hurt this other person. He's unforgiven. I can't forgive people and everything around me, so, I can't, essentially. The second chorus repeats and is followed by the bridge and solo sections. The bridge verse sees a change in attitude, no longer asking what they've done, but now it is what I have done. A great distinction and evident change within the narrator, which I think is represented by the guitar solo. This internal battle between himself vowing to stand alone and wanting to forgive society and to let someone into his heart. It's a great solo, and I think it does a great job of representing this challenging battle within the narrator.
Sorry, one less interruption. I just realized I didn't do a good job of explaining it. The solo does a really good job in this song of representing this internal battle, especially the build-up and how it gets more intense once the chorus comes. The chorus in the song is asking all these questions, so playing the solo over top of the chorus riff, it references these sort of questions that the lyrics are asking, and the solo is trying to answer them in a way, but can they be answered? Can he have a change of heart? We'll have to find out.
Quote, "Lay beside me, tell me what I've done. The door is closed, so are your eyes, but now I see the sun. Now I see the sun. Yes, now I see it." It seems that in this bridge, perhaps from his own doing, he has to hurt the other person in some way, a trauma response, so to speak. Yet seeing how he has hurt this other person and how she has now closed off to him, quote, "The door is closed, so are your eyes," end quote, he has revealed to him the truth of the matter. He wants love. He wants acceptance. He can see the sun, love and acceptance represented by this sun metaphor, which contrasts with his blackened, scarred heart, wicked skies, and darkened days metaphors, which means the society around them. She is his sun. This is combined musically with a lone guitar bridge. It gives this whole small little bridge, to me, the feeling of a sunrise, or perhaps the sun coming out from behind the clouds. It works very well together and paints a very vivid picture. As the chorus repeats again, he asks the narrator the same questions. Yet when the chorus repeats for the last time in the coda, he makes his decision. Despite this, the memories and trauma from his past still haunt him, as evidenced by the lines and motifs and instruments from the Unforgiven 1 sort of being played back and forth in the speakers around him. This represents the previous trauma echoing through the song and his mind. Here he finally stands that this person is just like him. She is part of the Unforgiven. Quote, "I'll take this key and I'll bury it in you because you're unforgiven too," end quote. He takes the key to the locked door to his heart and he buries it within the other person. This is extremely powerful imagery. Burying something usually denotes death in some way, the burial of a person or idea, for example, and by burying the key to his heart in this other person, it represents the metaphorical death of the old narrator. He realizes that him locking himself away is hurting the other person and he cannot stand it. The narrator commits himself fully to the other, as the key is now buried within her. And rather than asking if she's unforgiven too, as was the case on the previous choruses, he now states that the reason for committing himself is because she is unforgiven too. They are both unforgiven, and now they will be unforgiven together. The song then ends with the major chord, which to me indicates a happy ending where the two unforgiven souls are united and find comfort, love, and hope with each other, at least for now. Thus, The Unforgiven 2 details a story of how the narrator finds it hard to forgive the other person. All his life he has been hurt by society, so when he finds this other person, who he finally relates to, he has to search within himself to forgive her, to let her into his heart. It is difficult as he made a vow to never let his own will be taken away, yet is letting someone else into your heart not breaking this vow? How can he forgive society and by extension her when he has this vow still in place? Represented by the pain solo, he comes to the realization that of course he is tired of being alone, and the love and acceptance he finds in this person is actually what he wants. If he doesn't go with this person, he is actively hurting them and being the problem that he wants to escape from, being part of the dark skies, hurting the sun and closing the door off to her. Thus, he buries the key to his heart in her, and they become unforgiven together, united souls. The Unforgiven 2 is a fantastic sequel to The Unforgiven 1, taking familiar elements and lyrical themes and expanding upon them, referencing the previous song without it being cheesy or ham-fisted. The story picks up on some interesting questions of trauma and how it can reverberate through one's life. Yet, despite this trauma, with enough love and acceptance, even the unforgiven do not have to be alone. It is possible to unlock the door of their hearts and to forgive the world enough to allow yourself be loved, especially when you can find common ground and bond with the common trauma and experiences that you have had with another unforgiven person. Really just an excellent song, fantastic lyrics and themes, poignant questions, just fantastic work by Metallica. My favorite song off Reload easily, great stuff.